Everyone, I hope you're having a great time. I love the previous speaker. I think he made some very powerful points. I will remember his point that frameworks is a way to organize your mind, not your code. I think I'll quote it for some time now. So I would like to take over when he left. And I'm an executive director, but basically I consider myself a developer. I started as a developer. Just the framework is a bit different now. So you think on a higher level of abstraction. And today I would like to talk, he mentioned customer experience in the end, he mentioned performance. We will touch those points. We will go a bit up. We will discuss about teams. We will discuss about a few of the things which he already started. So build versus buy in our quest for a digital experience in our bank. I would like to start with this saying. I think it's extremely important to be successful, to understand why so many of our projects fail. Because we talk about success, about the good things. And I remember myself, or maybe I start with this gentleman. There was this gentleman around 100 years ago. And he was heading the patent office in UK. And I'll guess it was a rainy day in London that day. He came to office and he said, guys, I'm resigning. There is nothing more left to be invented. Because of that, for more than 100 years, he has been in slides and he has been quoted, not in a good light. And I would like to say that if you can, avoid to be this gentleman. But perhaps he had a point to that. And we come to this slide. I think it's important to understand this so to support the story about how we built and what is our quest in software. The wheel has been around for, I'd guess, 6,000 years or more. The suitcase has been around for around 1,000 years. And anytime, I have two small daughters, and I have a lot of photographic cameras, and when I go over in the airport with one of my smallest in one hand and the luggage in the other hand, I thank the guy that 40 or 50 years ago put these wheels under that suitcase. The point of this slide is that both of these components were around for at least 1,000 years. And only 50 years ago, somebody had this idea of putting them below. And if we see a bit further, we have digital banking, but it's still a bank. It's digital, but it's still a bank. It's still the same principle applying 100 years ago when you would have somebody which wants to buy a house or wants to invest or go to some holidays, apply today. And you have cryptocurrency. Cryptography has been around at least for 100 or more years. Armies was writing to each other, kings were writing to each other, lovers were writing to each other in a cryptic way. And then currencies for even longer. And only a few years ago, we had the brilliant idea of combining them in a new concept, which is disrupting certain industries. And the same with artificial intelligence, and the same with machine learning, and over again. If you go deeper, if you open the box of what we call innovation, you'd see inside banal things which were around us for thousands of hundreds or more years. Like Isaac Newton says, we stand on the shoulders of giants, so we use what's around us. So this is my first point to support this talk today. So it's not so much about new things, but it's about combining what is already around us with perspective, thinking out of the box, and having this openness to combine cross-industry, cross-function, what the gentleman before said, different disciplines, to make an impact in the real world. Having said that, there is an impediment to this holistic view and opportunity to see opportunities which are perhaps as far as our nose. We were put into boxes. We are put into boxes from early on. I call it labeling. We are not labeled sugar-free or bio or, I don't know, silicon-free, but we are labeled developers, designers, business, marketing, front-end developer, back-end developer, JavaScript developer, you go on and on and on. And I remember one of my first meetings with this big shot manager in my first job as a developer. I was sent there to listen because I would be developing this loan application and I was sitting, I was so excited, I was understanding it, and I had some ideas, and I say, can I say something? And I said what I thought. And he asked me, sorry, who are you? I said, I'm Enkelejd, I'm a developer, I'm new here, I love what you're talking about, let's get started. And he says, please shut up. Listen, and you'll be told what to do. So somebody thinks and somebody does. And there are roots to that. And there was a time when people were sitting inside the computer. A computer was an oversized calculator, and you had this professor with the ideas, and he would think on the night, talk to his friends, have a couple of beers, go back to work, punch the cards, get the results, and that was it. He did his job. It was alone. And we grew from that, and it was not far back. But the world changed, and we in IT or technology or development didn't know what to do because there were no frameworks. And where did we borrow our frameworks from? We went to borrow them from construction workers. And construction workers have these huge manuals done from Da Vinci and before Da Vinci, how to build bridges and how to build buildings and how to build everything. If you come in a room of developers today, you'd listen to them talk about architecture, you'd listen to them talk about building, you'd listen to talk about, I don't know, I would say, these guys are building some pretty cool buildings around here. Because even our terminology was borrowed from construction. Our teaching was borrowed from construction. But there is a fundamental difference, and I want to make a point here, between building a bridge and building software. In the bridge, you go from point A to point B, and your river doesn't change every day. It's there, waits for you to finish. You need to follow the plan by the book. In software, no. The world changes. Everything around changes. The river is changing every day. Imagine building a bridge when your river is going different ways every month. So, and in banks it's getting quite tough because technology is doing something to these boxes and labels. They're completely destroying them. There is no anymore difference between industry to industry. Everybody is against your lunch and your dinner and your breakfast. And you have these big tech companies which are doing banking, and you have these retail companies, and you have Alipay and Apple, and I don't want to bother you, but hundreds of those which are doing quite a good job at that. And in the meantime, in many companies, looks a bit like this. So, an average size bank has up to 200 systems. Remember our initial point, we said buy or build. These systems were put together and stitched. They work. In a sunny day, if you drive slowly, they work. And there are two hypotheses because there are many issues. I remember these systems. I was a developer, so now I'm an executive. And I remember I paid for some of these misconceptions of somebody thinking and somebody doing. I had my share of failures. And there are two hypotheses for that. Maybe I'm stupid, or we all are. And then let's see, or maybe something wrong in how we do things. And we say that if one can do good, is the Germans. Are many Germans here today? Nice to see you. It's a pleasure having you in the world. And we said, let's see how they do. So even Germans get it wrong sometime. And you had this big news coming out when SAP and Lidl, two of the biggest, one is an innovator in retail and the second is the biggest software company, threw away 500 million euros. Picture that, 500 million euros are thrown away. And you have some statistics, 60% of projects failing, and 90% of startups, etc., etc. I remember being a developer. For me, it was all about the craft, all about, like the gentleman talk, all about building the beautiful small code which runs faster. It's showing to your colleagues, be proud about it, be in community. But then when we build buildings and things at scales, we get it wrong. How come smart guys at scale fail and get it wrong? I think it's an extremely important question to ask to yourself. And today, the first learning is these boxes and labels must fall as well. In that room, when the gentleman in the previous speech said, all people, different backgrounds get in one laptop and try to solve an issue without being labeled. I'm not a developer, I'm not an executive, I'm not a photographer, I'm Enkelejd. I have some skills. I can do something. Let's do it together. So what to do? Let me ask, how many of you read the Agile Manifesto? Can I have some hands? Very nice. For the rest, please read the Agile Manifesto. Sorry. The best developers got together around 20 years ago, and these are some of the best. They shape our industry today. And they got out 4 things, only 4, and I think this is the most brilliant documents around there. And when I read this first, I'm a Southern guy, quite sensitive, so I wanted to cry. So beautiful it is. And they say, individuals and interactions versus process and tools. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration after contract negotiation. Responding to change over following a plan. And that's it. And you see these names and read about them. They are the founding members of this community. People like Martin Fowler, Jan Cockcroft, and all of these guys. And I think this is where we need to go back and to think about. So how does it apply to us at Raiffeisen? We are a small shop. We are around 140 people in IT and around 2,000 people bank. So how would all of these learnings and experience influence our journey for customer experience? I would like to ask you a question. How many of you believe this is the future of experience and digital? Can I see some hands? Only 2. Thank you, guys. What if I show you a different future, which we believe in at this bank? Imagine Marrakesh. Just picture it in your mind. It's a sunset day in Marrakesh. And it's a huge market. And there's a lady there, this lady, picture her. Look her stance, she's like that. She owns her space. And she does 4 things. She observes. She's good at it. She did it for 20 years or more, or 50 or 30. I don't know how old she is. She empathizes. She can understand. If you are a young man with your new girlfriend walking by and you want to impress her, and we males are quite notorious for being stupid at this phase of life, she would sell you a bag for 10 times the price. And if you are a lady which are much more difficult to fool, you'll get a better deal. See, she is able to incorporate that information, that empathy, to personalize her message and to engage you. In our view, this is the ultimate customer experience. But to do it with technology, and remember Mr. Bean, these 200 systems tied together, to behave like her as one entity, I guarantee you is a damn hard job to do. So, we believe it's about people, it's about teams, it's about architecture, it's about what you do, how you do, cross-functional. It's a framework, only in a different level. There is a misspelling there, but as this French gentleman Poincaré says, life is too short to do good grammar. I just see it now. But the point here is, it's about teams. And in this team, this is from Zagreb, I have 2 passions. I'm a developer, I like architecture and teams, and I like cameras, which are analog, older than me. And this is in Zagreb. And there is something in that team. There's no developer there. There is no designer there. We started in something I did. Okay. We started a year and some ago with one team. We scaled today to 7 teams. We want to come in 12 teams. Imagine Navy SEALs teams, not developer teams, not business teams, not like this gentleman in my first year of work which tell me, Enkelejd, please shut up, you're not paid to think. These are teams getting together to create this Marrakesh level of experience. What do we do in one slide? Agile teams. Remember these 4 principles for this Agile manifesto. Working on a microservice architecture. Doing on top of a fast data architecture, which is using data from our all legacy systems. With one customer experience strategy to cover all our channels. Their goal is to be independent but united in their quest to create a meaningful and consistent customer experience. We don't have the VR in mind, we have the lady which can empathize, which can observe, which can incorporate data and engage. And I'm so happy that IT, as well as an industry, is evolving from these construction times and big things. So I remember seeing the first IBM server. It was an experience. There was no selfies at the time, but if there were, I would do a selfie of myself with that. Big machine, black, humming, with small green lights. How many of you have seen these mainframes? Yeah, nice. Then we started to virtualization, and a bit heartbroken, we got away from these bigger machines, and then we went to Kubernetes and Dockerized, and we have hundreds of them now running in our shops. And gentlemen like Adrian Cockcroft, Martin Fowler are going even further. Amazon is creating this Lambda architecture in functions which exist in the fraction of a second. We are having some IT issues, I think. So for us, building these APIs, microservices, agile teams, working in cross-functional teams, it's a mean to become a data-driven organization. To cover that observe part of the lady and the empathize part. To observe our customers. We talk a lot about data, but data actually is people, is their footprints. From millions of transactions a day, you need to identify the ones which are meaningful, like this lady does. You need to target and to personalize. So we based all our backbone, all of this API and middle layer and microservices on top of what is called today a fast data architecture, because of the event you cannot afford to miss. And reading about Kafka, which was developed in LinkedIn. Because their architecture looked a bit like this. It's ours. Only I couldn't put there 200 boxes. You can scale it up in your mind to something like this. It can process 100 million events per second. It sits on top of our legacy systems, allows us to configure complex events. And I give you an example. You would like to know that when somebody enters your branch and is visiting your ATM and has some certain situation in his life, maybe he's having a new child, maybe he's getting married, maybe he's having other events. If you can identify these events, you can react to those. So cutting it short, our architecture is microservice-based, it's real-time, very important, it's open source. We believe that the times when you buy and then you know are gone. Most of our architecture will be open source. You try, you learn, you throw away, you try, you learn, you throw away, you try, you learn, you keep. And you go in circles, in 2-week circles, not in 2-year circles, not like Lidl writing off 500 million euros. On top of Kafka Flink, on this side, if you see, we have all our 200 systems in real time synchronized with our Kafka cluster, using our microservice, unifying our experience and creating our models and intelligence below. Where we are here, I will be very frank with you. At the beginning, we delivered our 2-3 services. Our approach is to dismantle this big spaghetti monster piece at a time. Yeah, perhaps one of my last slides. Moving fast, you need to have the right setup. If your car is in a good shape, you can drive 150 an hour. If it's leaking, if your tires are flat, if you have other issues, you will walk. Many of us companies are walking 10 an hour. They say if you go slow, you go far. I don't think that's true anymore. So developers need to understand broader. Labels must fall. Craft is extremely important. The quality of your code, the quality of your deliverables, no question asked. But it's not enough. You need to be able to engage in teams. You need to be able to build this DevOps mindset. You need to be able to understand business and domain. You need to be able to collaborate as a human being. Yeah, coming back. Build or buy. We couldn't care less. We think as long as all decisions improve our customer experience, it's fine. As long as our teams are empowered to progress in building this experience, which is unified. I'll give you an example. In these 200 systems, and it happened to me, we have a CRM system which says to a customer, "Dear customer, we love you so much. Happy birthday. Here a gift for you today." And then you have this other system which we bought from another vendor which says, "You know, Enkelejd, you cheeky rascal, you didn't pay your loan, we will put you on court." Imagine this lady in Marrakesh in the same second giving two different messages to her customers. Banks do it because of this inconsistent experience. So buying or building, it's a lesser issue rather than consistency and building this end-to-end customer experience. Yeah, that was all from me for today. So.